Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Design Recharge. It's the first episode of 2021, and I hit record so I can put my little sticky note down. Today I'm excited, and I really am specific about who I have in the next 2 months, just so you know. So they have a specific thing, and I always think that January should really be mental health month. I know it's not mental health month for everybody else, but it is for me in Design Recharge. So Mario started off camp. He is somebody who's had a huge impact in my life. He is somebody who coaches me. He's my friend, but he is going to kind of put a bunch of that together. Hopefully today that's number 2 question. So I'm going to let you, and this is episode 365. So it's like we've been doing it for a year.
You're straight. That's pretty crazy.
That's great. Okay, here we go. So Mario, can you tell us a little bit about your business, when you went out on your own, and what kind of design you did and what you do now and who your clients are?
Okay, that's a big question. So my name is Mario, obviously, as Diane has said. I've done all kinds of design throughout my career. I've been doing this for 20-something, a lot of years. And I started off doing interactive animation design in Flash on the web in 1996. This is before animated GIFs were a thing. So I started there and worked my way through being a designer, art director, creative director for many companies. I started at Disney and moved from there to multiple small agencies, also working for a lot of the other studios. I went back to school. There's a story there, but I stopped school in the middle of it, and then I went back to school a few years later, finished my degree, really just to connect and build a better network. Graduated from Art Center in about 2004, which seems weird to me because I started in 1996 or something. And then immediately started working with a small group of guys that I'd been working with for a long time. We had a small studio. One of our clients hired us out of it, and we started doing subversive ad campaigns, which are basically guerrilla marketing type things, multimedia, literally, video, web. This was early 2000s, so we were doing a lot of things that are really easy to do now, but weren't easy to do then. So a lot of storytelling, a lot of strategic community building for specific ad campaigns. After that, 2008, the housing market crashed. We lost a lot of business. I was laid off and moved to Hawaii, where I laid low for about a year, just kind of working on myself, doing some really introspection, some really awesome alone time with God. During that year, I developed a lot of this stuff that we're going to be talking about today, and use that to really start pouring into young adults. So college age through after college and early career. Had a ministry there for about 8 years at a church, doing that specific thing, but slowly started ramping up my branding and design business again. I started doing branding for a lot of fitness companies. I'm very passionate about fitness. And I see a lot of crossover in branding, mindset, and fitness. So it's easy for me to connect those dots for people. Through that, I pushed really, really hard into building my own personal brand in 2019. So latter half of 2019, I was really just focused on building my personal brand to set up an awesome 2020. And then 2020 has been an interesting ride. It did not turn out exactly the way I was hoping it would turn out. It was very, very radically different, but better. So 2020 for me was a huge win. It was a huge mindset shift for myself. Helped me solidify a lot of these principles that I'm going to be talking about today. Also helped me to win. I hit all my financial goals that I had set in 2019, not knowing what 2020 was going to provide. And through that, I've been able to help others like Diane and many others through social media and or personal coaching to do the same. So I do a lot of mindset coaching. I focus on the fitness industry. I do brand strategy. And I see a lot of crossover in all of that.
you have been a significant part for me of my personal growth, my business growth, and my spiritual growth, which is something I was really looking for in a coach. And you're a great friend, which I also really like. I'm thankful for. And you helped me, and I'm just going to say some of these things because maybe this is where you're connecting me. I'm connecting this with mental health. So you've helped me with my self-talk, the negative self-talk, and how I think about what I'm saying, and using the word but with one T, mindset, and then really working on stopping being a self-saboteur, and really knowing, for me, knowing where I get my worth from, and really being able to reflect that, and understanding what humility is. And there's a whole bunch of things. So you've helped me through limiting beliefs. I did write this down because I would not be able to get it out if I didn't do it like this. And I know we have struggled with some of the same things. Like, I think that's why you're able to see it in me and then point it out. So do you think that you've fully overcome those things, or do you think that you're in a constant state of practice and growing through them?
I don't think we ever like fully overcome, like once and for all. We check that box and it's never going to bother us again. I think that anybody who tells you that is lying to you. The human person will struggle with similar things throughout their lives. You may struggle with it on a different level, in a different way, but you will still struggle with that thing for your whole life, because it's just something that's kind of like an Achilles heel. It just kind of like gnaws at you. So I like in a lot of this stuff too, fitness, because it's like, I may get to be strong enough to lift 100 pounds one day, but if I don't constantly work out and I don't constantly keep my fitness to a certain level, I won't ever be able to do that again. And it will always plague me, right? So if I battle with self-talk or issues of low self-esteem, there's always going to be a tinge of that. I may get stronger in combating that, but I will never really get rid of that, because there's just going to be something that's going to bother me. It'll bother me in different ways, but I will be able to grow and strengthen in overcoming that. And that's why I can look into people and help people battle things, because I'm going through it as well.
I'm glad that you've struggled with some of the same things, because it allows me to, it's nice to know that you don't have everything always, whoever's in front of you. It's nice to know that they walked on that same path. So you want to jump into your deck?
Sure. Okay. So this originally is a good 30 minutes long, and I'm gonna truncate it down. Built in here are like exercises that we're not going to spend time and do, but I'm going to go through the deck and I'm going to show you, this is what you would do here, this is what you would do there. Okay, so this is called the mind shift, shifting your mind from fear to freedom. And this is something that I have battled with as far as like fear, being fearful in life and things, and just things that I allow to kind of roll around in my head. And that's also why I've been able to help Diane, I think, a lot, because I see a lot of the same patterns in the way we talk and the way we communicate to help her overcome where she's at and kind of grow through that. So this is what we're talking about today. It's a high-level interactive. I'm going to put quote on interactive. Actually, mindset workshop, but please feel free to screen cap anything, and you guys can do these exercises at a different time. So we're going to discuss how to discover our strength, vision, limiting beliefs, and how to overcome them. Who's this guy? I went over this a little bit, but here's another quick little synopsis. I went to Art Center in Pasadena, in California. I've been doing this for 25 plus years. I'm a creative director, owner of Made by Maker, and currently going through a rebrand, but we'll be doing that later. I am a former vice president of creative and design director. I have worked with Disney, Warner Brothers, Fox, Ford, Toyota, Nine Inch Nails, Al Gore, Microsoft. So a lot of random different places, but a lot of entertainment, Google. And here we are, the journey here. Okay, this is where we're going. In order to know where you're going, you need to first remember where you've been. And I think it's really important to take stock of your journey and your story, because your story and your journey really define who you are at this point. And I've worked with Dan a lot about this, and we talk a lot about, like, where things come from when we say things. Where does that come from? And we have to do a lot of work to find out sometimes why we think the way we do, or why we believe that certain things. And so this would be a 5-minute exercise. Again, we're not going to do these exercises, but this would be a 5-minute exercise. You can take longer, obviously, later, but take a screen cap of this. And what you want to do is take stock of your experience. Take some time, remind yourself of all that you've gone through to get to this point in time. Now, I did a version of this talk originally in 2020, very early on in quarantine. So things were fresh. We didn't really actually know what was going to happen through the year. And so it was really interesting at that time. And now it's even more interesting now to take some time and remind yourself of all that you've gone through, because I'm sure everybody has a 2020 story. All that you've gone through to get to this point, and write that story out. Spend some time and really write that story out, and leave no details behind. Really, all those things make up who you are. I want to hear your story, right? Where were you born? What's your economic state then, now, through life? How much schooling did you complete? You're going to hear my kids running around too, so just to know. Do you have dependents? Did you have dependents? Were you married? Were you not? Are you not married? Are you? Have you been married more than once? All these things. What are some hard life lessons that you've learned through your life? So this is all going to point us and kind of ground us and tell us how we got to this moment in time, who we are, where we've been. And now what we want to know is, what are our goals? Where do we want to go? Okay. And so to get where you want to go, it will take a whole new you, right? And I've heard many, many people say a version of this in the last 24 hours, multiple times. It's pretty crazy. Even this morning on my Future Pro call, Chris said something like this while I was on there. And I chuckle, because it's really true. If you want to know where you're going, or you want to know how to get to where you're going, it's going to take a whole new version of yourself. And you have to take stock of where you've been to invent that new person. So this is another 5-minute exercise. You want to take stock of who you want to be. So past and now future. We're going to future cast. Diane always says that she's really terrible at visioning. This is a good exercise for her to invest in. So this isn't so much as a goal sheet as it is an ideal you. Who do you want to be in 5 years? Who do you want to become? Right? And really describe that version of yourself. And I tell my coaching clients not to say, oh, well, I do this, or I want this, or I want you to put yourself in the future, and I want you to look back to the 5 years that have passed, right? I want you to put yourself 5 years in the future. I want you to look back 5 years in the past and say, this is what I did. This is what I have. This is where I've been. Okay, so you want to speak this, you want to write this story as if it has happened, because it's going to help you really, really take hold of that vision for yourself. And then you're going to push through that. Describe that version of you. What is that story? Where will you live? What will your business income look like? How much personal time will you have? Are you married? Are you divorced? Are you, do you have more kids? Do you own property? What's your lifestyle? For me, I'm a car guy. Like, what kind of car am I driving? I'm married with 2 kids, so maybe it's not a car, and maybe it's what kind of playground do I have in the back of my house for my kids? Or I was telling Dan this morning, I'm starting to look for a house, and this is one of my goals that I've been projecting for this year. But literally where I live, I'm renting, and literally where I live, no property is less than $1 million, $1,005,000 actually. So I'm just like, okay, so this is going to be pretty insane of what God's going to do in my life this year to actually help me to get into a property. So just take stock of who you want to be. Write that story. Now, limitations. Okay, I love this image that I found because this guy is like, oh, I got to carry all that down the street. Sweet. Let's do this, right? And he stacks it up and he carries it and he makes it happen. So the limitations. In order to run fast and efficient, we must cast off every burden weighing us down. Okay, it's a reformat of a scripture, right? Lay down every burden. If you want to run fast, if you want to run hard, if you want to run efficient, you need to take off the weight that is pulling you back. Now take stock of your limiting mindset. This is all mindset. Okay, this is not actual physical stuff that is holding you back. Okay, because I believe that 99% of what we need to overcome is between our ears. That is the story that we need to overcome. Okay, the thing that your mind tells you, the thing that your heart is worried about, okay, your spirit, those are the things that we need to overcome in order to move forward, in order to attack these goals. So what thoughts are limiting you from accomplishing your goals? What thoughts hold you back? Okay, what comes to mind when I say set a goal for yourself? Who are you going to be? Because most of us can say, oh, well, I'd like to be, but I want to be, but, and then we're just insert excuse here, right? And they are all excuses. Our mind is really the only thing that is holding us back from accomplishing everything that we want to do. So here's some examples, right? I read slow. I can't do whatever that is. I'm too short, right? Dan's always talking, she's a little person, right? I've never, whatever it is, right? I'm afraid of putting myself out there. I wear glasses. There's this thing in my eye now. One of mine in the last decade has always been, well, I live in Hawaii. They don't value design here. And they don't value XYZ here. Yet this last year I made more than I've ever made in Hawaii. Okay, so there is a mental thing that we have to overcome in order to achieve our goals. All right. And I found this image and I love it because it literally is reframing, right? Detroit turned out to be heaven, right? Who has been to Detroit? I went there and I was thoroughly depressed. We had to go for Ford. I went on a business trip and it was like literally the saddest place on earth. And this was in like 2000. When was this? This is like 2006. The recession hadn't even hit yet and it was terrible. It was awful. I hear it's a little better now, but who knows after 2020. But Detroit turned out to be heaven, right? We need to reframe how we think, reframe what we think, and flip it around so that we look at it differently, okay? Sometimes all we need to do is look at the problem from another angle. I've been really working on my internal dialogue and monologue. I say dialogue because I do talk to myself. My internal monologue, and I'm trying to reframe and swap out problem for challenge. Because I can hit a challenge. If there's a problem, that makes me nervous, right? But if I swap out problem for challenge or challenge for problem, then I'm able to really start strategizing and how to beat that. So let's reframe your limitations. Take the limitations from that last exercise, okay, and reframe them in a positive way. And here are some examples. I read slow becomes I take my time to absorb information, or I take in information differently so that I can make best use of it, right? I'm not smart enough becomes I'm learning so much every day. Right? When we think we're not smart enough, it's just because we're overloaded by information. But the fact that we're overloaded by information means that we're seeking information, right? So you're really striving to learn much more. Diane's favorite, I'm a little person, I'm a small person, but she's also a bottom cheerleader. She wants to be the strong person, right? She holds people up. But, being small just means that she's nimble, she's quick. It doesn't take her a long time to pivot because she's pretty nimble and she can maneuver. Her agency is a smaller agency. It's a one-woman shop, but she can change on a dime. She can pivot. If she wanted to pivot tomorrow, she could, and probably kill it, whatever she's doing. Okay, so reframe those limitations. And now you study the evidence, right? You should be writing these like side by side or on one sheet of paper so you can see everything at the same time. All you've gone through, that's your story, that's your strength. That's what's brought you to this point. And it doesn't matter if you feel it's a negative story or a positive story. That is your strength. In fact, most of the strongest people I know have a really, really hard story. And they're strong because they've overcome it. They've gotten to this point. Who you want to be, that's your vision. Okay, Diane, visioning, okay? This is who you want to be. And I'd really between 3 to 5 years, because it has to be tangible. It has to be within reach, within 3 to 5 years, okay? That's your vision. Your limiting beliefs, obviously, is just your fear. Right? There's many ways to break fear up into an acronym, and one of the most popular is false evidence appearing real. Right? I have an Instagram post somewhere. I broke down fear in a bunch of different ways. I'll send Dan the link, but it's false evidence appearing real. It's things that aren't true, but we feel are true. Those are our limiting beliefs. Our reframed beliefs become our power because we're taking hold. We're not dismissing our fear, but we're flipping it around, making it a strength, and that becomes your power because you can push through your fear. You can look at your fear, flip it around, and that makes you powerful because it gives you power over that fear. And this is decision time, okay? Who are you going to listen to? That internal voice of fear or that reframed voice of power? And that's a decision, going back to Diane's question leading into this talk, that's a decision that I ask myself every day. When I wake up, like this morning, it was the first time I had done 4 a.m. in a little while. It took me a little while to get out of bed. I was like, man, this is nice. I'm tired. And I started just listing off the excuses of why I didn't want to get out that moment. Or I could reframe it and know that I need to start doing something today. We all have those voices in our head. And you have to decide every day, moment by moment, are you going to listen to them? Are you going to reframe them and use them as power? Use them as encouragement? Use them as inspiration? Inspiration requires perspiration. That means to be inspired means you're going to act. It's something that you're going to act on. Use your voice of power to inspire you to move forward and move toward your goals and who you want to be. So after that's over, this is a very tangible thing. I want you to find a fire pit or a stove and throw that limiting mindset list in the fire. I literally want you to burn it. Find a match, whatever. I want you to burn it in a safe place. Obviously, yes, right? This is why it has to be physical, okay? Throw it in the fire and watch it burn up and turn into dust, okay? It's a very youth groupie type thing, right? But it really works because you see those limiting beliefs, mindset, literally burn up before your eyes because that's the power you have over it. And then, share it on social media, share it with Diane, tell her this is what I was battling, and this is the way I'm going to reframe that and take back my power. My name is Mario. This is the way you can connect with me if you should so wish. And that's the end of my talk. I'm going to stop now.
Man, I took a ton of notes. I'm full on the back sheet of my paper, but I hadn't even done the exercise yet. But that's good. I like the youth groupie that I have to burn it. It'll be a good exercise, I think. So I have some more questions. So one of the things I wanted to say, so the limitations, So you said take the weight off, take what's holding you back. Sometimes it's hard to do it. You can't really like undo armor all at once. But I also think about you because you get up at 4 or super early and then you go on this walk and you walk with this weighted vest on. So you're actually practicing with the weight on. So do you think that there's a, not that we need to practice with limiting beliefs, but like sometimes you have to, you have to know what it, I don't know. Do you think that there's an analogy there? Because then you can take the thing off and run faster or be stronger.
Definitely. There's a direct analogy there, right? It's like if a weight vest becomes my normal feel for myself, if I walk around, if I literally got out of bed and put a weight vest on, I would feel like I was 30 pounds heavier all the time. My body would adapt to that. When it's a false reading of what I am, right? So once I'm able to remove even a portion of that, even 5 pounds of that would be what a portion
20.
would be 20%. I don't know. Yeah,
oh Lord,
maybe.
I don't know. 25 pounds.
Five. I don't know. It would be, and my dad
We're
would
not
be
math
very
people.
disappointed.
It's okay.
My dad would be very disappointed. He's a math teacher. So, if I took 5 pounds, let's make it easier. If I took 10 pounds off of it, right, that's 33%. So I would actually already feel 33% more strength. I would feel 33% more energy. I would feel 33% more powerful because I've removed 33% of that weight, right? Now, we may not know all the limitations. And again, this is something that daily you're going to be probably realizing. And Diane, since we've started, she'll realize like, oh, I just started realizing that I do that. I don't want to do that, but I do that thing, whatever that is, right? And she's going to start actively stopping or practicing not doing that. That's already taking weight off of her. So she's able to work and be and live lighter because she's changed a way that she speaks to herself, or that she tells herself, or that things that she believes in, because it's been a weight that's been holding her back that she didn't realize.
Okay. So I love that. So you've given me one of my goals was to read the Bible more. And so you said, well, what do you do the first thing in the morning? And I said, I look at my phone. And you said, okay, well, then your goal is to use your phone to read your Bible. And that's the first thing you're going to do. So, and that's something that was a great thing. But what about that when you're not really completely present, when you're still kind of in that sleep state and that voice, when you're awake, it's not as, maybe it's just different, right? But I think about like, oh, I'll just hit snooze again. Like how sometimes you have to retrain like where your clock is, or where that you set an alarm that you have to physically get up so that, you know what I mean? Like, because we're not always processing at that point. Like this morning when you didn't really want to get up, what was it that you told yourself? Like, how did you be, I don't know, clear?
There's a lot to kind of unpack there, but I'm going to try to make it as simple as possible. I think what you're asking is, how do we set up positive triggers in moments of maybe not so wakey hours so that we can perform what we need to perform, right? You need to make it as easy as possible. So the reason I asked Diane is like, okay, what's the first thing you do in the morning? I want her to not do a totally new habit. I want her to amend the habit so that serves her instead of drives her down a really anxiety-ridden path. So she said, that's the first thing I do is look at my phone in the morning. I'm like, okay, so what we're going to do is we're just going to adjust that habit. You're still going to look at your phone, but the only app you're allowed to open is your Bible app. Or, for you, it may be your podcast app, or it may be, it should be anything but social media. It should be anything but email. It should be nothing work related. Those first few moments of your waking time should be devoted to making you better and preparing you for your day. So what I kept telling myself this morning was, you need to take charge of your day. You need to own your day. And if I keep hitting snooze, then my day owns me. Okay, so the more I hit snooze, the more I allow my schedule to overrun me instead of having charge over my schedule. So that's just an internal thing for me. I need to take charge of my day. I need to take charge of my mental health. Part of me getting up and doing any kind of workout in the morning is a huge part of my mental health.
Is there anything you do like during the day? So it sounds sort of like habit stacking, right? You told me to do something that connected with something I was already doing. So what if, or maybe it's something to kind of shock your system so that you aren't just running this in the COVID life. We can just keep living the same thing, doing the same thing. And it can be very, we just do it without even thinking. We work too long or we do something. So are there times like when we're working that it may be that we need to shock our system instead of habit stack? Or is it always, I mean, habit stacking does seem like a good thing, but like when you eat, you also do something else because you're going to get up and eat?
I'm huge on shocking your system when the time's right, but you have to be prepared for that, right? This is the beginning of the year. Everybody has all these fitness and health and wellness goals for the beginning of the year. Oh, this year I'm going to do this better. I'm going to do that better. I'm going to, there's no gyms that are open. I'm going to work out at home now. I'm going to lift weights at home, or I'm going to go for a jog or whatever. I'm huge on shocking your system, but you need to be ready for that. So you need to mentally prepare yourself. This is something I did recently. It's called 75 Hard. I knew what was going to take place because I've done 90 to 100 days before, where it's just like I'm all focused on changing my eating habits or my fitness habits, right? So my whole thing was, I just need a kind of slap in the face to get myself back on track. Or a shock to your system may just be, I need to do something radical right now to get myself 100% fully focused on my life. And it doesn't matter what that is, okay? It just needs to be something that is out of the ordinary for you, that you can do immediately, or maybe you plan to do within the next few days or hours, that will kind of shock your system and get you ready to do whatever else. I knew 75 Hard was going to be a total mindset thing. That's why I did it. It was going to help me focus my mind back on me, which sounds selfish. Focus it back on me so that I can be the most prepared I can be to love on and to be the best I can for the people that I love. So huge on shocking your system, but you also have to be very, very much ready to do that, because if you just try to shock your system, the first moment into it, you're gonna be like, I give up. I don't want to do this, because it's going to be hard.
How do people prepare? Like, so say I think with 75 Hard, you're doing it with other people. So community is really important there, right?
Not necessarily. No, it's an individual thing. So it's not like you join a group of people. I had friends.
But I thought they were doing it at the same time as you.
No. Oh. This is a very, very personal thing. So they tell you basically it's a challenge, right? And it's a challenge to do 5 things every day. You need to work out, not just once, but you need to work out twice, 45 minutes each. They can't be stacked, so it can't be 45 minutes to 45 minutes. I'm just describing this because this was the challenge that I was heading into, and I had to mentally prepare myself to be ready to handle these things. You have to drink a gallon of water every day. You have to stick to a very specific, strict diet, and you cannot deviate from that diet one bit. No cheat days, nothing. You can't drink any alcohol as part of that diet. You have to take a photo of yourself every day, your physique every day. Not so much that you can see change right away, but so that you're documenting your daily progress. It has nothing to do with body change, although your body will change. It has everything to do with your mindset and shifting your mindset to make sure that you're doing the most important 5 things for yourself every day. And those just happen to be those 5 things. Now, I would say, hey, maybe you go on a stint for a full week, and this is your radical slap in the face. You're shock to your system. Every day for a week, I'm going to do these 3 things, and I have to do these 3 things, or I have to start my week over. And that was the thing with 75 hard. If at any point you missed or you faulted or anything like that, you would have to restart. You started on day 0 at that moment.
I remember you kept saying you had these dreams and that you were eating bread or
terrible.
something.
It was terrible. Like, I had a dream right in the middle of it. It was right around like 38 days. I had a dream that I was somewhere, and I do branding work for an alcohol company locally, that I was at one of their things, and someone just served me a drink, and I mindlessly grabbed it and drank it. And as soon as I pulled it away from my mouth, I was like, oh crap, I got to start over. And like, I got so mad, and I woke up, and my heart was beating, and I like almost woke up in a cold sweat. And I woke up like, that day I woke up super early. It was like 3:30 in the morning. And I just got out of bed and I just started my day because I was just so angry, but also relieved because it wasn't true.
So in preparing, this could be, I do think you did use social media as a accountability.
I did, yeah.
So in a way you did it with community, maybe.
Kind of. I was inviting people into what I was doing instead of relying on people to do it with me. I was just using it as a social accountability. It's like, hey, I'm up. And so I used it to talk about whatever I was thinking about that day. And it actually brought a lot of clarity to my work and content and things like that.
Okay, so I'm going to go to the next question. So, because I just think continuing to press on is important. So you have accountability, you prepared. How long did you prepare before you did the 75 hard? I mean, it wasn't like you just said, Tuesday, I'm going to start this on Friday. Like,
so I bought the book. There's a book. I bought the book. I read the book. And by about a quarter into it, I'm like, I'm doing this. I'm going to do this. I was already committed in my heart to do this. But then I started making excuses, and the book talks a lot about excuses. And so I started making excuses, and I started counting, okay, 75 days. At that point, 75 days would be right before Thanksgiving. Oh, perfect. So I was like, I'm going to start tomorrow because then it'll end right before Thanksgiving. And I would start, and I would just not have the mental capacity to do it that day. So I'd have to start at 0. So I kind of like did a false start twice, but it was like only one day, and I just couldn't even last a day. And then my friend texted me. He's like, hey, are you doing 75 hard? And I was like, yes. He's like, I'm on day 16. And I was like, I'm doing this. That was it. And so he just told me, he's like, hey, I'm 16 days ahead of you. And I was like, now I have somebody to yell at me, right? And I found out another friend was 2 days ahead of me. And I was like, so we would have actually started the same exact time had I started for sure, right? So I read the book, and that's the 5th thing is you have to read 10 pages of something that's like a self growth book. So I was about maybe 3/4 of the way through when I actually started. And then I finished the book as I was starting 75 hard, which is a good transition for me. But so I prepared maybe, I don't know, 5 days. It took me 5 days to kind of like mentally say, okay, yes, I'm going to do this. And then 2 more days to try it and really realize, oh, this is going to take a lot more mental capacity than I have readily available right now.
I think it's funny that some of us are very competitive, and that if somebody challenges you to do something, you're like, I totally can do this. I will show you, right? But
Right.
Sometimes if it's just internal, sometimes it's really hard to do that. This question is, how are you able to focus on things that you want to work on? Kind of maybe take it off the body so that we can think about our business, because the body, I mean, obviously you have arms and legs and whatever, or hopefully most people do. But like when you're in your business, you're focusing, like it's bad if all I do is just marketing and brand awareness, because at some point there's no nurture, there's no relationship building, there's no actual time to work and make things. So you have to like take time. And this is where I love what Demi does with taking, breaking up his day into things he's learning, revenue for today, revenue for tomorrow. But sometimes that can be super structured, and it's hard if you have kids or you have, other things that you do. So how are you, or how would you tell me that, or even as a client? Because I actually think there's a ton of mindset work that we end up having to do with our clients when they hit a roadblock or they don't see, not that we're trying to convince them of something, we're just putting things out there. But sometimes when they've committed to it and they're deep in it, then you have to be that encouragement, I think, sometimes. Do you know what I'm asking? Probably not.
I'm not entirely sure what you're asking.
So let's just think about mindset. Okay. So if I'm having a issue with excuses, how do I focus on? So I have all these things. I have self-sabotage. I have negative self-talk. If I try to work on all those things at once, it isn't a great idea for success.
Just like habit stacking, it's the same thing that we work on ourselves, right? Just like you have a huge project, say you have a website or you have a full branding project where you have to do a logo, which I know Diane hates, typography, you have to do the website, you have to do social media. So it's a huge project and you're looking at it all at once, all at the same time. You're like, there's no way I can get this done. Well, how do you project manage that? Well, what's the priority? Well, we can't really have a website. We can't really build a website if we don't have the branding done. So, okay, now we got to focus on the branding. Okay, now we got to focus on what's the strategy for the brand? Like, who are they? So then you start just chunking everything down until you find that first step, right? And for you, that first step was just swapping the thing that you looked at on your phone, right? Mm-hmm. And so from there, now we can start building on what those habits are. Just like that, then you figure out what's the main thing that is holding me back. What's the main number one issue that I'm battling every day, or the main thing that I'm trying to figure out every day that is really, really holding me back. And then I'm going to look at that and say, okay, that's a really big thing. Are there pieces to that? Is there something that I can start with to just start changing that? So you just got to chunk it down. And just like big projects, just like life, you want to chunk it down, but you also want to build in flexibility, right? You have to build in flexibility. Just because, not like the 75 hard where there's no flexibility. You need to build in flexibility to your life, right? 75 hard was very inflexible with the things that you had to do daily, but it didn't tell you when you had to do them. It didn't tell you that, there were some days that I was working out, at midnight because I missed a workout, or I didn't have time to do my double workouts because my kids started crying right before I was going to start my second workout. So you have to build in flexibility for yourself. Just know that the goal is to get better at these things, right? Don't just give up. You want to keep moving. Tomorrow's a new day, right? Tomorrow's a new day. Just start over. It's really easy to talk about fitness and nutrition, but just like projects, like if you mess up today, it doesn't mean the project's over. It means that you just keep fixing it until it gets right, right? So just chunk it down, bite-sized pieces. Some people's mouths are bigger than others. Some people can take on more than others can, right? So chunk it down to a piece that is bite-sized for you. Start there, get comfortable there, and then move on to the next thing.
So then what if you're trying to grow, and how often do you, like in 75 hard, you had to take a picture every day. So how do you take a picture for your business on something that you're working on, and how often?
That's a good question. What is your year broken up into? Right? Is it broken up into quarters? Is it broken up to months? Do you have a revenue goal? is what's your goal for your business, right? If we're talking about business, then it should be a very tangible, physical number. I want to make, $100,000 this year. Okay, well, what does that mean? Well, that means I need to make a little bit more than $8,000 a month if I broke it up like that. If you look at your past years and say, oh, well, the lean months are these months, this month and this month and this month, and I know I'm not going to make nearly as much, or I'm going to have a deficit, but these months over here are super strong. So then you just start hedging your bets, right? Month by month, you can take a picture, you can take a snapshot. Even with your personal growth, if your goal is to draw every day or become a better artist, you start drawing every day. Get a journal with day 1 and day 50. Look back at your drawings. Draw the same thing every so often so that you know that you're getting better at drawing that thing, right? Or collaging or making characters or whatever your thing is. If you want to get better at that thing, then start.
So then what about mindset?
Practicing.
How would you take a picture of mindset and how often?
You need to know what your triggers are that trigger your negative mindset. And I'm going to use Diane because she's in the hot seat because it's her show and she loves when I call her out. One of the first things that I kept calling out Diane was on her self-deprecation. She would give an excuse and a negative slam to herself with, like, in these situations, I think I was watching a design recharge actually. And she was like, oh, well, that's because I'm terrible at blah, 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 blah. Or, oh, I don't deserve da, 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 da. And she would just brush it under. It would be there and it would just kind of float and then it just fly by. And I would slam her on it. The first time I heard her say it, I was like, stop doing that. And she's like, what do you mean? Stop doing that. You just set your negative self-talk. It's terrible. You're sabotaging yourself. And she didn't really think about it because it was just so much part of her vernacular. So if you start recognizing what your triggers are, then you can go back to those triggers and challenge yourself, right? You can be in situations. Mindset stuff is easy in a sense to test because you have to battle that every day in every conversation, in every way, in every situation. You're battling against your own mind. So you can start getting stronger in those situations and you can start realizing this, oh, I didn't do that as much this time. Or I totally flipped that around and I made that a positive phrase instead of feeding into my negative self-talk. So it's very, very almost obvious to test if you know what you're looking for, but you have to know your triggers.
Do you think that businesses have triggers for mindset issues?
I would say they do. Yeah. It would always be somewhat situational, right? So when this situation happens, maybe that turns the owners into a negative self-talk internally, which will present itself in slamming their employees or whatever the repercussions of that is, right? So if you start understanding what that is, again, if you know where that trigger is, then you can start fighting and getting stronger against that trigger and really noticing what that is. For your business, it's the same thing. If your business is, reactive instead of proactive, if you're working too much in your business as opposed to on your business, then you know what you have to do. You start shifting that around and you can start measuring it.
I also think one thing I do in my onboarding, I ask if they've ever worked with other designers. And then I ask about those stories because then it's a way to ask about the triggers where they might be triggered by something that I might do that I do with all my other clients. But now I have to be a little bit more sensitive because they're triggered by that, like whether if they've been taken to the bank, or not to the bank. What do you call it?
Taken to the bank.
Totally taken advantage of, right? And so I may say something that somebody else said, but I don't know that they said it. So it's kind of like really getting to know some of those. And it's one of the questions I ask in the very beginning, just so that I can be a little bit more sensitive to what their needs are. And I also ask how they want to stay in touch. Like I know Dee and John do weekly meetups with or check-ins with each of their clients. And I thought, oh man, I need to do that. Like, I think it would help in some communication with people. And so, but I don't do that currently. And so I also just think, people are always giving you ideas, and you just got to try it out and see if it works for you. So there's one other thing I want to do, and I only have 3 minutes left. So you really helped me with something specifically for before camp. So obviously we've been friends for a long time. Well, not super long, but I feel like you're my brother. Yeah. So what it was, I really had felt called to do camp. It was always going to be online. It was always going to do like this. And I was really putting off any kind of marketing and telling people about it. And I have a real issue. I still have an issue. I'm still working through this. And it's a limiting belief. I don't really know exactly all that I'm afraid of, but I'm clearly afraid of something. I remember I was outside, we were talking, and I had my friend Dustin, who's successful, right? He's had a successful business, has a successful business. He was like, yeah, I love him. He was like, well, Diane, it might go and it might not. You just, just be prepared for it to be not successful. And then I come to you, and it's exact same time as Black Lives Matter, the really kind of where George Floyd had gotten killed. And it was just really intense. And I was like, should I do this? Like, I'd lined everybody up. I'd already done lots of the recordings, but I was holding myself back from something. Do you want to tell them again? Mario's coaching me in 3 areas, like my business, definitely, my personal. So there's mindset work I'm doing, but then I also really wanted somebody who believed the same things I believe, because the spiritual aspect for me is really important. And then again, in mental health, I trust God and you don't always trust, so anyway, so that was another reason that Mario is perfect for me, because he also is bringing a biblical perspective to what I was doing. So do you want to tell him what you told me, unless you don't remember?
I believe I remember. So one of the main reasons that Diane had set out to even do camp was because she felt that she was being spiritually led to do it by God. God was saying, you need to do this. And she was answering that call. She was like, okay, Lord, I'm going to listen to you, and I'm going to do this thing. As much as it makes me uncomfortable, as much as I don't like to put things out by myself, I'm going to do this thing. So when she came to me, she's like, should I even do this? Blah, blah, blah. I was like, and Dustin had already told her that it doesn't matter whether it's a success or not. It doesn't really matter. And I said the same thing. I was like, look, it really doesn't matter whether or not this is a huge success, a minor success, or a flop. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you do it. It has nothing to do with the outcome. It's all about the practice of answering the call that she was feeling called to do in the beginning. So sometimes we feel very strongly that we need to do certain things, and there are going to be worldwide pandemics or racial movements at the time that we're supposed to start something, and it's going to make us second guess what we're doing. But the core belief should remain the same. Why are you doing it in the first place? Is it to make you better? Is it to improve your life? Your life? Is it to improve your family's life? Is it to answer a call that someone has placed on your life that you feel very strongly about? Then it doesn't really matter what the outcome is. I told my brother recently, they're looking for a house as well, and I told him. He said he's really feeling kind of lost in this whole process. He's not even sure what's going to happen. And I told him, I'm feeling the same way, but I know that God's calling us to look for a house. And I don't know if it's just because he wants us to look and go through the process of that, or if he's going to find us a house or what. But I know that the process is the reason. The process is the reason. And that's what you have to really kind of focus on. So for Diane, that was the whole thing. It was the doing of the thing. It wasn't the outcome.
It was being obedient. You said you weren't called to be
Yes.
successful, Diane. You were called to be obedient. And of course, then Dustin's, he's like, you might not be successful. You just need to be prepared for not being successful, which I appreciate that Dustin's real with me, right? Then he was kind of bringing that in. But I really did. I was like, oh, but I am successful if I am just obedient. And I think that was just a mindset. It was just a fear of putting things out there that people wouldn't like it, or that it wouldn't. For me, it was about helping provide something, a community, but also provide knowledge that was from an array of people for 5 weeks in the summer, so that people could feel connected to each other and they could grow and they could have accountability. And it wasn't just like a 3-day thing, or it was a long, intense thing. And I know people are still doing it. Don't worry, you're not, you know, keep watching, right?
Still working through.
Right. But for me, that was a really big, and I think about that was just a turning point for me. And I think about when you talk about the call, I think about the beaver, because the beaver actually hears water, and it's a innate, they just have to cover up the water sound. And so it is literally the call of the water, right? And I think people use that in the call of the wild or whatever, right? There's all these calls, but to me, it's kind of being in tune with what I think I was meant to do, and I think that's something else you've helped me do. So we didn't get to cover all the questions, but we covered a good many, and you had an awesome talk. And thank you for being real and
Absolutely.
sharing the beginning of 2021 with everybody and being my friend.
I'm excited and happy that I could do that.
Oh, I didn't mean to say but. I wanted to say, and I want to tell you how you can, and I'm going to put it in the chat. You have on Instagram, if you're listening, all these things are below. If you're on YouTube, or if you're listening on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast, it's in the show notes. Or you can always go to rechargingyou.com/365, and you could get all these also. Plus the chat will be there, and the transcript, and everything else will be there. Not right away, but in the next month it will be there.
At some point.
And just so you know, it's at the Mario Quezada, not K. Sort of, that's how he told me to say it, but it's QUEZADA, and Mario, MARIO, and then made, and then an X, and maker, MAKER. So you guys can check him out at Instagram at both of those handles, and he posts regularly. He has great stories, very encouraging. He walks a lot in the dark in the morning in Hawaii, and
I do.
but it's great. So hopefully, I know he's going to talk at camp again, so hopefully you guys will see him there as well. But check him out. He's doing a lot of awesome things. And Graham, thanks for coming all the way from the UK, and for everybody else that gave me so much of their time today, and excited to bring in 2021. Thank you for coming live. Oh, and you can always come live. Paul was telling me, he's like, I didn't know you could come live. For many times I listened to the show. So you can come live. You can just go to rechargingyou.com, and there's an orange box, or maybe there might not be an orange box at that point, but there's somewhere on the homepage, always in the footer, but up in the middle at the top too, it says join the list, and you get an email with this list, and you can come live. And it's every Wednesday pretty much at 2:30 Eastern. It's 7:30 GMT, or British Standard Time if you're in whatever, and you'll have to do the math everywhere else. In Hawaii, it's 9:30 a.m. So I will see you guys. And if you were at camp and you are a happy camper or trailblazer, you are getting mail finally, because I am very late on getting those handwritten notes, but hopefully you're getting your stickers and your handwritten notes. And we'll see you next week. Thank you so much, Mario.